Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 6 of my Pyanodons playthrough. In this episode, we are going to work on glass and aluminum. Enjoy. We want to be careful about this because we do want to be able to expand, so if we put a bunch of stuff right in the middle here, we might not be able to. So how about we go down, and we're going to have a full belt. So we'll have machines on each side. They're still ghosts, so it's a little hard to tell, but they have fuel pipes that go in and out on each side, so you probably want those to be on the vertical direction. And give it a space just so we can walk between the buildings if we need to, even though it makes it bigger. And let's see, it's asking for 12.5, but that's kind of a weird number, so let's just do 12. Even numbers are better than not even numbers. One thing that would be cool would be to enshrine our crashed ship. Guess we'll take the firearm magazine out for now. An achievement for a wall. Looks kind of funny with the dirt, but let's just say there is actually dirt under all of this snow. And there we go, now we have a museum to our crashed ship. And we might as well put a chest in here just for any junk we're never going to use. Eventually we'll be able to send them into the incinerator, but not right now. And finally, our last ash chest. I am getting concerned about our copper here. Iron is okay, but copper is pretty low. I would say if we're on our last strips, we probably want to take getting copper seriously, but how about let's just search to see if there's something nearby. Because I really don't want to go that far out for copper. Exploring is a little bit easier. There we go. 24 million copper. And that is closer. I feel like we're using enough copper where we kind of do want to have a full 15 going in being processed. It still feels like it's so far away. But we need to secure this now. So we'll put it on. And no radar. I wanted to copy our mine setup, but I can't do that without radar. And I guess we should research the lamp recipe as well, so it will be ready for us when we have glass. So I'm basically looking for something like this. Doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it will be pretty close. And this will mine so slowly, we don't need to be careful about where we put these miners, because we're just going to replace them with electric before this mine ever gets drained out, so it's fine. First, let's send the coal down there. It's probably not going to require all that much, and this belt is already basically maxed out, so I'm thinking we'll just pull it off of, say, the steam belt, and just deal with it later if it becomes a problem. Or another thing we can do is pull it off of the end of our coke making machines, because they're not always running. Yeah, pretty much straight down and then straight across. And there we go. We've fully paid off our ash debt. So now we're just processing it in real time. Pi builds are so crazy. It's kind of funny. This is strictly an early game thing. Don't think playing Pi is going to be like this for the whole time. It's just when you're in the burner stage and also the pre-splitter stage that you have to do crazy stuff like this to make it work. So there we go. Coal is connected, and I guess we'll just ride it down here. So let's see all the fuel get sucked in. I was thinking on the way here that we could have just done a half belt full of coal, but having the whole thing filled is a good buffer, even though it's going to be kind of annoying later to pick up. But I don't know, maybe I'll make it a half on the way back, because we don't need that much for this to run. Let's see, well, that's not right. What's funny is it can be right, we just have to flip the sides, and because we have two of them, flipping the sides is actually pretty easy. We just literally put them on the other side, and that will flip the sides. And all of that will be sent back home, so there's going to be a huge buffer in all of these belts. Okay, first let's just put this on one side. It does look like it's prioritizing this other side, so it should quickly drain. It's not so much I care about the buffer of resources here, but I was just thinking sooner or later we're going to have to pick this belt up, and that will be half the amount of junk resources in our inventory if it's only half populated to begin with. Just like how we're handling the iron plates, that putting on the right side of the belt has less priority than the left side. So that means that this mine will run first. And we do want it to run first because it's the smaller mine and we would prefer it to be empty so we could just clear this out and regain the space. That seems to be working. Suddenly we have lots of copper again. Does it treat this whole thing like one extent? It looks like it does. And doing things like this is kind of how I try to keep the factories clean, that when you're running a lot of belts, kind of keep them in a bus form where they're all next to each other, and also don't just zigzag them through the factory. Certainly if that's what works best, do it, but try to condense the lines and try to condense them away from the center of your factory instead of towards it. And if you do that, you should naturally find bus lines starting to appear, and the internal part of your factory won't get crazy, because as seen by here, you do actually need space inside the factory to get resources, so you want to leave it for the lines that must go through the center of the factory, and then have the lines that don't have to go on the outside. Let's see, we're at 163, about halfway with the extent, and yeah, it looks like it's going to work. Also, the pipe spacing is going to be off with all these power lines here. I would prefer them to be maximum. It doesn't really matter with the exception of the amount of materials you put into pipes and the aesthetics of it. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, we're so close. We need a pump. That's really bad. So I say it's bad because we need a pump to do this. It's just steel and an engine unit. However, the engine unit requires aluminum. So okay, we'll research it, and yeah, I guess we'll research the car too. Strangely enough, the car requires a light armor to go into it. Oh, that so looked like we were gonna make it. No. Ultimately, it's just not that big of a build. So picking up is probably the best solution here, because we're about 15 minutes or so away from the sun starting to go down, so I don't want to delay this any longer. We really need to have the glass on hand. So we'll go down away from the factory, and let's try to line it up a little bit. Alright, all of the fluid is in there, and they pass through each building, and it's cool that it will tell you what the consumption per second is, just to give you an idea of how fast it's burning through the fluid. So basically how it works is the consumption rate in units is based on how much fuel value it has. So the more fuel value, just the slower it will use the fuel. But here we go. We'll just shoot it in there, and there they go, and each one's going to use 19 a second, and it's going to make molten glass. And finally we'll need to make the glass. Let's just space them out so they look like everything else. And we'll need to send it somewhere. We definitely want to put this on our bus, so it's going to have a very long path to take to get back, although we could potentially share it with the copper here if we will then later split it. And we probably should, just to minimize the amount of belts. It's even more belt craziness, but ultimately there will be less belts if we share sides like that. And we'll hook it up. And there we go. Achievement unlocked, and making glass with 7 minutes to spare. We don't need to have this on both sides of the belt, so we'll just put it on one here. And the input belt isn't maximized because we only have half of the mines that we need. And electricity is doing okay. You can see we have a lot of spikes here. The retorter whenever it has to turn on. And the solid separator is kind of the same reason. The crystal mines are a very consistent high power draw. Okay, now that glass is here, we will insert it on the other side of the copper belt. And there we go. So in it goes. Glass has now been separated, and we can send it anywhere. I doubt anything's actually going to go in this internal space, so let's just send the belt straight up. We could share the belt with stone. It's not like stone is going to do anything, but sure, let's do that. The furnace machine gets what it needs, and now we need to plan for lamps with 2 minutes to spare. Not that the sun's going to go down all that fast. It is going to take an hour, so it's going to be very gradual. If you weren't specifically looking for it, you might not actually notice it. The main limiting factor on this is all of its inputs, because basically glass, copper, and iron have to all come in on one side. So it's one inserter for each, or 0.4 per second, which seems plenty fast. So we are very short on our iron for now, but at least we have some lamps. We are all ready to go, but we actually do need it to get darker outside so we can actually see where to put the lamps. So we are going to wait a little while, but at least it's going now. Yeah, I see what's going on here. Everything is slowing down. Well, I kind of want to hook this other one up to this side. It's so awkward. So we haven't run very long, but about a third of the shale oil is gone now. I actually just realized that we do have a small amount of aluminum just sitting here at our soot machine, so we could have built a small number of pumps just by processing this ore rather than setting up an entire mine, and that amount of ore would have made us 40 plates, so we could have done that, but oh well, too late. It does seem like it's getting darker. And yes, the lights do turn on, But I would prefer it to be a little darker than that so it's clear what the range of the lights are, because I don't want to put more lights down than we have to. And the lights are brighter than the vanilla lights, so I kind of want to be able to see, to know exactly what the spacing should be. But there we go. The full mine is complete, and we're looking good. Since we did just research the pump, we probably should set up aluminum so we can make them, because it's only going to get worse as time goes on, so we want to have these pumps. After all, we did run into a situation where we wish we would have had a pump. So we do need the aluminum, and that's essentially what the aluminum is for in the early game. It just goes into engines. It goes into a lot more, but early on, it's basically that. And how about we do something like this? The limiting factor of this build is actually the coal, because to mine aluminum we actually need coal gas, and that's the first use of the coal gas. However, we can't store it anywhere, so we have to produce it in real time as it's needed. And the problem with this build is that it's not set up for coal gas. So I don't think I mentioned it when I made this build, but every build has to have a limiting factor. It's what stops the build from running after it has filled up. So if we hooked up the aluminum to this, we could use the coal gas. However, that aluminum would not be the limiting factor. So in other words, the aluminum would only mine when we are consuming coke, and that may or may not work. So the best way of creating the coal gas is to actually have a build where the limiting factor is the coal gas and not anything else. So if we make a separate setup only making coal gas and everything else is a byproduct, then it'll work. We get a lot of coal gas from processing raw coal into coal, and we get a lot less from processing the coal into coke. So really it makes sense to do the first step and turn it into coal and stop there. We can try to pipe the coal into this build here and see if it'll work. Or we can just consider it a byproduct and send it down the fuel belt to be burned. It's not efficient, but if this build isn't running, then that coal from the coal gas will pile up, and we don't really have good technology right now to deal with buffers. It's probably better just to send the coal down and let it get trashed away. As our technology will get better, we will be able to more efficiently handle resources, but right now it's not really that practical. So this whole build is limited by the 15 coal a second going into the distillation column, because I don't really want to have 2 belts of coal for this. That's just a lot considering aluminum's only going to occasionally run, and it's already going to be 18 miners, which is quite a lot, and we're only going to be using this aluminum for engines, so we don't need a huge amount. So this makes sense. It's also interesting to note that the stone furnaces for aluminum are actually a lot faster than for iron and for copper. So if you look at copper, it's 10 seconds to make 1 plate, but with aluminum it's only 6 seconds for 1 plate, and it actually requires more aluminum, so that setup is going to be very inserter limited. Alright, it is absolutely darker here now, like you can tell. I kind of like that with the sun going down so gradually that you can tell, but sometimes it takes a while. If you're not actively watching the clock, you may not see it, but it's pretty clearly darker now. So what kind of range do we have on these? Usually I like to just count poles and see. So if we did 3, that's fine. 4, that seems fine. 5. It might be getting darker in the middle there. 6, oh yeah. So how about we do it every 4th pole or so, just as a way of counting. And that actually works well for this setup. And ooh, look how much brighter it is now. It shows you how dark it was getting. And of course, we are only limited to putting these where power poles are, and that is a problem considering a lot of our factory is running on burners, so we'll just have to play it by ear. But you see, like, having the wider range of these lights kind of lets you put one in the middle rather than having to like put one on each side. So it does help. And those miners are done. I am glad we have our new mine set up now. This setup probably is big enough to have lights on each side, but because of their range we can kind of skip over quite a few machines per light. So we have lights where there are power poles, but there are places that don't have power poles. One place it would certainly be nice to have light is on our bus here. It is weird placing all these power poles when we don't need them for inserters. So yes, back to making coal gas here. That because this is a secondary process that's not that important, we can run it off of one of the same belts as these other setups just to save coal belts, because there's only so many places we can put coal on here with the way that these miners work. So you don't want to have any more than is necessary, and it's kind of inefficient to have entire lines of coal just not moving. So we want to try to spread the load around. So here we go. It's running, making that coal as a byproduct and filling up on coal gas. Because we actually have somewhere to put the tar, we don't have to worry about that. The tar could just go in as a byproduct. And it's a byproduct of this side too, because technically this side is running only to make the coke. So both sides are treating tar as a byproduct, and it works. So just like that, we are filled up on coal gas. Alright, we are halfway to night now, but the coal comes in and it gets put on the junk belt, and it will be eventually burned. And this is actually a higher quality fuel at 4 megajoules, so that will help the factory a little. Okay, then we need 18 drills. Will 18 drills fit on here? Maybe. Let's make sure to add it to our list. And we've got 800,000. It'll last decently long. Alright, we've got our 18 drills. And it can also be hard to see where the aluminum is, but just do what you can, and I guess we'll go up since we definitely don't want to go down. And they have a mining range that is 1 square wider than the building. And we have to be careful with how we do this because, like all the others, there's going to be 2 inputs and 2 outputs. Okay, I think that's mostly ready. We need to pipe the coal gas in, and it does flow straight through the machines. So we just need to get it here, and the pipe very well may not be long enough. So in preparation, I kind of just want to put a furnace here pounding through all that aluminum because I'm pretty sure we're going to need a pump. So it's a moment of truth. Is this going to hook up? Okay, it actually seems to. And in it goes. Okay, 194. That's not too bad. And it's weird that the coal gas is a burnable fluid, but that is not the fuel that they use, that these are solid fuel burners. So they run off all of the things you expect. And whoops, did not reconnect this. Wow, that fills up fast. But there we go. The fuel comes in on the left side of each burner, and then on the right, they have a space, so they put it on the left side of the belt, and the ash goes on the right. And then they all come up here. We're generating way more ore than ash, so the ore gets the underground treatment, and the ash just waits for an inserter to pick them up and get pushed off to the side here. So now we need to calculate for how many of the furnaces we actually need. By recipe, we only need 5.4. However, we have 9 input resources, and each machine is only going to get 1 inserter, which means we need 12 of them. So in goes the ore, and we'll make aluminum for real. It is a huge recipe. It's funny seeing the belts with our 3 fuel types that we're actively using. The coal dust, the regular coal, and the raw coal. And we do have this ash we need to handle as well. And it's not going to make very much. And I'm worried about overloading this one belt that has so much ash on a single side. But it's actually probably not going to matter for much longer because this stone mine is almost gone. And only 0.7% left of the copper mine. So it's probably fine to just put the ash on this belt. It's one more thing doing so, but it should work. And I guess I'll just go over the mine for now with this belt because it's easy enough to move later if we have to. We are producing this in small quantities all the way down here, so we don't need that. So I guess we need another giant belt moving resources around. I would say it's very straight spaghetti. But it is absolutely spaghetti. Eventually, a lot of this is going to disappear because we're just going to have better processes that don't have quite as many byproducts, and we'll also have certain logistics options as well. Alright, we need to pipe this into the back of some of these machines, and we don't really know which ones would be best. Well, this side is running slower, so it should probably be this side. Right now, we only have the 1 ore type on it, but let's just assume that it's going to have 2 ore types. So we will have a filter inserter here, picking specifically the aluminum off, and then it's going to go in, and that will have priority. This belt may very much fill up with ore. We might need a buffer chest in here, but we'll see if it works without it. It looks like it is completely night now. So this is what night will look like. And looking down here, now that it's running at full speed, we have our coal gas, and it seems good. Okay, we've got aluminum up here. Of course, we're going to want to make engines, and currently the only 2 things they go into is the pump and the car. And something like this. It's quite simple, only 0.06 engines a second, but we really don't need that many, so that ought to be fine. So we're not really going to be able to see it run for a while until iron makes it back there, if it ever makes it back there. Looks like our extra aluminum from processing the ash has showed up, so we can just pipe it in and it will get priority off of this side and go in, and hopefully that'll be enough. And we're at 0% for our original copper patch. So it's gone, and that's just a delay. There we go. Now it says 0. So we get rid of it. And what to do here? Well, certainly there's a lot of unnecessary belts, but we already have a smelting setup where we're mining this in our second copper mine. I'd show you, but we don't have radars, but it's there. So this doesn't really do anything anymore. And it's always satisfying in any factory, but especially Pi, where you have extra machines and belts that you can just remove. And the factory looks cleaner as a result. All of this is no longer necessary. However, we are producing a tiny amount of copper as byproduct of ash processing, and it's just being dumped here. So we might as well process it here. Problem solved. And the factory is a little cleaner as a result. Luckily, engines are the kind of thing that we can craft in our inventory, even though they will take some time to do so. But it would be nice to have a car. And wow, look at those resources. It's about 1,000 plates to make it. We're mostly caught up here with all of the new machines we have. A big one we haven't made yet is the fish turbine, but we don't have any power shortages right now. And you do want to be careful and power, because we are creating a lot of solids as byproducts, and these have to be burned. So if we have too many wind turbines and our entire factory is running on renewable wind, then we're actually going to get overloaded on the byproducts. We want to be careful about that. So I'm not really feeling the need for the fish turbines right now. It would be nice to look into our shale oil a little bit. This is a very large building, so it's kind of hard to see unless you have lights on both sides, but that should be good. And we don't have any lights down here, so let's fill them in. There we go, nice and bright. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we are going to upgrade our iron processing technology, as well as start making concrete. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.